Think we're live. Hey, how's it going? Lee Hayward here with the Total Fitness Bodybuilding video chat for Friday, July the 5th. For my friends in the United States, hopefully you had a good 4th of July holiday. And for my Canadian friends, hopefully you had a good Canada Day. I had two big celebrations this week. And today we're going to jump right into a video Q&A. So first off, I just want to make sure that this is coming through loud and clear and that you can hear me and see me and everything's coming through good on your end. Seems to be coming through good on my end, but as you're popping onto our live stream here today, just let me know. Type into our chat window, and Robert's doing that. Thank you, Robert. Much appreciated. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to you. Again, I'm assuming this is coming through loud and clear. All right. Again, just give me a mic and audio check if it is. I always like to do that before we go, because when you're doing a live stream, you never know. Loud and clear here. Good stuff. Appreciate it, Lee. Thank you much for that. All right, so as I'm waiting for a few people to pop onto the live stream, I just want to kind of give you a quick little overview of how this works. I know if you're regulars, Sean saying come through loud and clear. Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it. If you're regulars to the live Q&As that I do every Friday, you know how this show works. But basically, I'm going to be hanging out for the next hour answering questions and topics of discussion that you guys have related to fitness and nutrition, health and wellness, any specific challenges regarding your workouts, your nutrition, building muscle, losing fat, that kind of stuff. Feel free to type those questions and topics of discussion into our chat window, and I'll do the best that I can to help you out over the course of our chat today. And also want to give a shout out to the Total Fitness Bodybuilding podcast, which is currently going well. Lots of positive feedback so far from the podcast. And if you have any suggestions or feedback or topics that you would like to see covered in future episodes, please let me know. I mean, obviously these podcasts and these video chats, they're geared towards helping you. So if there's anything specific that you would like to see covered in those podcasts, let me know, and we'll certainly take that into consideration. All right. And again, if you haven't already done so, you can subscribe to the podcast. Obviously, it's posted through YouTube podcasts. If you go over on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel, right up there on the top menu bar on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel, you will see a link for podcasts. Click on that, and that's all of our podcast episodes. It's also on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, and a bunch of the other podcast platforms as well. There's too many to list. There's so many podcast platforms, but it will appear on a lot of them because the way it is, it's set up so it posts to multiple platforms there. So whatever your favorite podcast platform it happens to be, hopefully you'll be able to find it there. All you have to do is go in there and search for Lee Hayward's Total Fitness Bodybuilding, and it should pop up in the search results of your favorite podcast platform. All right, let's see what we got going on here. First off, I posted on my page, on my Facebook page, asked people if they had any questions for today's episode, and a couple of questions came in advance. So I'm going to address those questions first while I'm waiting for those of you who are tuning in live here now to type in your questions into the chat window. And again, just heads up, anything goes, anything related to health, fitness, nutrition, whatever. If there's something specific that you would like to discuss, please feel free to type those into the chat window. We're streaming from Facebook as well as the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel. And most people tune in through YouTube, but I know some people are tuning in and watching us through Facebook as well. So if you are watching on YouTube, you'll have a chat window to the side there. If you're tuning in from Facebook, there will be just type into the comments below the video and it'll come through on my end. All right, let's see. First off, there's a question came through on YouTube. I just want to answer this one. This one, don't have a name for it. Says, Lee, I won't be able to make the live video chat today, but I have a question about how do you strengthen your wrist and shoulder joints? He says, I've never heard anyone personally talk about it, but they're complaining about the aches of it when lifting. All right, well, a lot of people do talk about shoulder and wrists. I guess not so much shoulder and wrist joints, but they're talking about working the shoulders and the forearms, which indirectly engage the shoulder joint and the wrist joint. So to strengthen the joints itself, you're really just going to work on exercises for those areas, because anytime you're doing an exercise, it's not just the muscles getting worked, it's the joints, tendons, and ligaments, and all the connective tissue, as well as the muscles that come into play. So it's a whole synergistic unit happening there. So I'm sure you've heard people talking about shoulder exercises or forearm exercises or hand exercises. And of course, this all is going to engage the shoulder joints and the wrist joints. First off, when it comes to shoulders, I have some videos up on YouTube that you can go check out right now. Just go to on YouTube, type in Lee Hayward rotator cuff. That's usually the key word that I use, because the rotator cuff is kind of like the area that a lot of people have issues with the shoulders. And that is the whole rotational aspect of the shoulder, the rotator cuff. So there's a whole bunch of different videos showing some exercises for that. Even if you just search for general shoulder exercises, because I mean, all those different shoulder movements are going to work the shoulder joint. But you want to focus on rehab and therapeutic exercises, especially if you have some aches or pains or injuries there. And if you do have shoulder pains or an injury, I would recommend getting it checked out, right? Get it checked out by either a physiotherapist or get it checked out by your doctor or something, just to make sure that there's no underlying more serious issue done. Because if you have just a minor strain or some stiffness or something along those lines, if it's just minor, yes, exercise will rehab it and you'll be able to continue on. But if you have a tear, especially like if there's a tendon ligament tear or something along those lines, your exercise is not going to fix that. Very often tears, especially tendon or ligament tears, need to be corrected through medical treatment, some sort of surgery, operation, or whatever. So if this is a minor thing, like, oh, my shoulders are a bit stiff, or I think I strained my shoulders, you might be able to rest and active recovery and a bit of rehab might be able to fix it. And hopefully that is the case. But if it is something that's been going on for a while, or it's very, very painful, and even just doing some basic movements causes a lot of pain and discomfort, or maybe you can't even do certain movements, like maybe you can't lift your arm overhead or certain movements, that might be a cue of something more serious. So if it is that, then you definitely want to get it checked out and use your own discretion on that. But medical supervision or getting it checked out would probably be a good idea regardless. As for the wrists, there's a lot of things going on there. I mean, these joints, the shoulders and the wrists, are very complicated joints because they have the three-dimensional movement. Like, I mean, if you can move a joint in three dimensionals, like I can with my hand, or your shoulders, you can do arm circles and move it in multiple planes of motion. They're very mobile, they're very flexible, and of course, that's the beauty of those joints, but they're also prone to injury because a lot of small moving parts in there, and it's easy to have some strains. So in the case of wrists, one thing, if you're dealing with some wrist pain now, a temporary Band-Aid solution that may help is using some wrist straps just to help support your wrists. That may allow you to work around that injury or that strain while it's recovering. And again, same thing applies with the wrist. If you have prolonged pain there, get it checked out, because it could be a cause of an underlying issue that's been lingering there, or maybe some joint or tendon, or who knows. So, like, there's so many things that could be going on there within the wrists. Okay. But if you are just feeling aches and pains and strains, wrist wraps can certainly help. I wear wrist wraps a lot when I do my strength training workouts, because I have carpal tunnel syndrome, and I find that helps to support the carpal tunnel and minimize the inflammation, right? So it's not a cure, but it's kind of like a Band-Aid. And I am due to get carpal tunnel surgery operation to correct that. So, I mean, I'm on the waiting list for it. I mean, here in good old Canada, you hurry up and wait with healthcare. So I've been on the waiting list now for over 2 years to get carpal tunnel operation done. And I mean, I've had nerve tests and stuff, and I do actually have some nerve damage in my hands from carpal tunnel syndrome. So I do need to eventually, within the near future, get that done. Hopefully later this year, I'm planning on getting that done. But I've been on the waiting list now for literally 2 years now to get carpal tunnel syndrome. And it's not a major operation anymore, but there's such a huge backlog of waiting lists and stuff like that I'm just waiting my turn. Hurry up and wait. But so that's an issue that, of course, deals with the wrists. But the reason I wear wrist straps, and sometimes if you watch some of my workout videos, you probably see me wearing wrist straps. That's the reason why, because it does help to support the wrist, but it also helps to support the carpal tunnel as well. But As far as actual exercise is concerned, when it comes to the hands and the wrists, one thing that I would recommend, gripping exercises, like heavy grips, hand grippers. I've been a big advocate of those, and I've made some videos talking about those, but there's a lot of different hand grip tools that you can use. That's a big one, just strengthening your grip in general, which will help to strengthen the joint and the tendons and ligaments that go right down through the wrists and the forearms. Also doing specific work for the forearm rotation, right? So like you can do wrist curls, reverse wrist curls, and there's certain rotational exercises as well. Some of these I have a few video links that I'll share with you, and I'll put it in the show notes afterwards, right? Because there's a bunch of different exercises that you can do as therapeutic and rehab exercises for this. Actually, what I'll do, I'm going to find them now, because if I leave it till later, I'm probably going to forget. So just give me a moment there. I'm just going to do a quick search. So some of them, if you do a search for tennis, like Lee Hayward tennis elbow, I have some exercises that are, it's actually a tennis elbow rehab exercise, but it's also good for, it's a good one for the wrist joint as well. Let me just find it. I'm going to just find video. Okay. I'm going to share this one. Wrist joint video, wrist rehab. I just call it wrist rehab exercise video. You can go check that one out. That's a good one. Wrist curls, like I say, dumbbell and dumbbell wrist curls, reverse dumbbell wrist curls. Those are two good ones for the wrist joint. Obviously, lift very light and work within your means, just focusing on the movement for now, and then increase the weight as you feel comfortable. But that'll take the wrist joint through a full range of motion. And the other one that I wanted you to check out was rotator cuff exercises for the shoulders. I'm just going to share that one. Where is it? This is a good one. Right, I'm just going to copy that link in the chat window, so I'll have that done. Because if I leave it till later, I'll probably forget. Shoulder rehab exercise video. There, go check that one out. Cool. All right, what other? We had one more question came through that I want to address now. This one's from Anthony. He says, quick question. He says, as I mentioned to you earlier this week about my return to the gym after a 10-year hiatus, I'm over 50. I was wondering if you've heard about the side effects of TRT. All right. So he's getting back into the gym. He's over 50, hasn't worked out in 10 years, and he's wondering about TRT. This is something you need to go talk to your doctor or go to a hormone replacement therapy clinic and get checked out and see, first off, where your natural testosterone levels are. Because just because you're 50 doesn't mean you have low testosterone, right? I mean, some of my coaching students, I'll give you an example. One of my top coaching students, Paul Miller, he's in his 60s. He's actually pushing 70, and his natural testosterone is still into the 600s, which is a very healthy, normal range, especially for a man in his late 60s. So just because you are, 50 plus, 40 plus, 60 plus, whatever, it doesn't automatically mean you have low testosterone. Now, it generally, the way it works is as you get older, your testosterone levels naturally decline with age, but they may still be in a healthy, normal range. So don't just jump on the TRT bandwagon thinking, oh, I'm over 40, I got to get on TRT. No, not necessarily. I mean, you need to get this checked out and see where your natural levels are, right? Because some people are perfectly healthy and fine, in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and other people are not. So it's really an individual thing. But this is something that you need to check with your doctor. I've made several videos about this. In fact, 2 podcasts ago, I did an interview with one of my coaching students, Mike Brown, and Mike was very good to, go into a lot of detail about his personal experiences using TRT, and he's doing so through a doctor, through a hormone replacement therapy clinic. And it's not, as far as side effects are concerned, like there are things that you need to address and the things that need to be adjusted. Because if it's done properly and the dosages are monitored and adjusted to keep you in that healthy, normal range, the side effects are very minimal. The problem comes about when you're not monitoring it and you let the dosages get too high and the hormone levels get too high, because there's side effects of having too low a testosterone and there's side effects of having too high a testosterone. We want to be in that middle range. It's like the Goldilocks rule, right? We don't want it too hot. We don't want it too cold. We want it just right. And as long as you stay in that just right range, the side effects are very minimal. And in fact, the benefits very often far outweigh any potential side effects in terms of improving your quality of life, in terms of improving your strength and your energy and your confidence and your recovery and all this kind of stuff. That's very powerful. But I recommend, if you haven't already done so, check out the previous well, it's not the previous podcast, it's 2 podcasts ago I did with Mike Brown. Just open up the podcast tab there. I'll just link to it here. Just give me a second now. So you can go check it out after this video. Lee Hayward podcast. A second, I'll find the exact link and I'll share it there in the show notes. Yeah, but this is a good one. It's called Building Muscle After 50. And the title is HRT/TRT, carnivore diet, intermittent fasting, and strength training. Those are all the key topics that we talked about during that podcast, right? We really went into a whole slew of juicy topics and stuff that you should find very helpful. But one directly related to your specific question there, Anthony, was the topic of TRT. So podcast about TRT/HRT. I'll just put the link there in the show notes, so you can go check that one out after you finish the video chat here today. You can go check that out. All right, so those are the couple questions that came through on my end first off, and now I'm going to jump into answering some questions that are coming through live here on the stream. Let us see. We have Power Building and Calisthenics saying, "Hey Lee, what are your favorite books on bodybuilding and or strength training? Also, I'd like to do personal training as a side hobby. Do you have any advice or books you recommend on that subject?" Books. Okay. There's a lot that we could go into. It really depends on what you want to dive into, because the topic of, specific bodybuilding and strength training, that is a very specific niche. If you're getting into competitive bodybuilding or powerlifting or something like that really goes down a specific rabbit hole, a specific niche. If you're looking for overall general health and wellness and fitness, that's a different niche. And then, of course, if you're going down the route of personal training and coaching, that's another niche. And they're all under the umbrella of bodybuilding or health and fitness or whatever, but there's so many specific niches and that you can go down and take things deeper. Because let's just say you're looking at personal training and you're helping beginners, which is usually when you're at a gym coaching people, it's usually people who've never worked out before or people who haven't worked out in years, and they need someone to kind of show them around, because they don't know how to do the exercises. They're very newbie to the gym, which there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying this in a bad way. Everybody was a newbie to the gym at one point or another, and you just need to show them around and teach them the proper form, teach them the basics, and kind of take them step by step. When you're looking at bodybuilding and powerlifting, those people have already gone through all that, and now they're looking like, okay, how do I go from lean to contest shredded? How do I manipulate all those fine details to hit my peak come contest day? That's the bodybuilding niche. That's a totally another level from someone who's just entering the gym for the first time and saying, hey, what muscle does the bench press work? Right? Or what is a bench press? They don't even know that much. It's a totally different level. So it depends on how deep down the rabbit hole and what areas and niches you want to go down to. But I have a bunch of books here. I'm going to just share some of them, some of my favorites. One that I really enjoyed, this is for strength and power training, Dinosaur Training, by Brooks to Cubic. This is an old book, but it's a good one. I don't have them all up here, but I have several on my shelf here. Another one. Oh, it's jammed up in the back of the bookshelf here. Just give me a second. Oh, geez, it's really jammed in there. Get down. All right. If you're looking for strength and power training, this stuff, Super Training by Mel Siff, this is like a Bible of like power training, powerlifting, strength training. That's a juicy one. What else? I have another one here. An old one, Vince Gironda program, right? The Iron Guru, Vince Gironda. He had a lot of cool stuff. Now, I'm going to be honest. Like, a lot of this stuff I agree with, and a lot of stuff I take it with a grain of salt. Like, Vince Gironda had a lot of cool stuff back in the day, but there's some stuff that he advocated that I think he was totally out to lunch on. One thing in particular, he didn't want his lifters drinking water during a workout because he thought that that was a sign of weakness if you're drinking water and keeping yourself hydrated through a workout. And I think like you're out to lunch on that, old man. So nowadays we've learned a lot of things since then. What else ones we got here? As far as health and wellness is concerned, Outlive by Peter Attia. Now, this one's not necessarily a bodybuilding strength training book, but it's a health and wellness book. And if you're going to go down the route of personal training, especially if you're going to be training older people, this is something that you would definitely want to familiarize yourself with. Another classic one that I love, Burn the Fat, Feed the Muscle by Tom Venuto. That's a great one for overall fat loss, nutrition, and just giving you the mindset of a healthy approach to, a sustainable fitness and fat loss transformation. It's also kind of geared towards bodybuilding competition because Tom's a former competitive bodybuilder. What other ones we got here? Got a bunch here. Super squats, right? That's a fun one. The strength and power training. That's a quick read. It's only a short book, but that's a fun one. Other ones we got here. This one's kind of goes into the psychology of training. Ironmind. Hold it up. Ironmind, Stronger Bodies. That's wrote by the same guy who wrote Super Squats. It comes from the company Ironmind. If you're not familiar with them, they've been around for a long time. They really focus on power, strength training, Olympic lifting, that kind of niche. But that's a good book, and it's more about the inner game and the mindset side of strength and power sports. But that's a good one. What have we got any others down here? Here's an old one for bodybuilding as well. Extreme Muscle Enhancements. That's a specific bodybuilding book. Carolyn Coker was the author of that one. I have a couple more. I don't have them here now. They're probably down in the basement. But there was one that I had specific to bodybuilding. It was I can't even remember the name of it off the top of my head. It's a pre-contest. This might have been kind of like the pre-contest Bible or something like that, but it was a big meaty book where they interviewed some of the top pros from back in the early 2000s, like Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler, Dexter Jackson, a slew of the top pros throughout the early 2000s. And each of them kind of like gave an overview, like each one had a chapter or an overview of their contest prep. And it was interesting to see the different styles of training and the different styles of nutrition that each of them followed. Like there was a lot of similarities, but of course there's some key differences. And it's really a good takeaway, to just kind of see how different people going about their training and nutrition. But that's another one. Again, I can't remember the exact name of it, but pre-contest Bible or something like that it was called. But it was a really thick one, almost like 100, like multiple hundreds of pages. Then, of course, you have the classics, like Arnold's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding. What else is there? Muscle Mag had some of those big encyclopedia books back in the day as well that were pretty good. Another one that I really like, too, I have it up here. This is an old school book. For those of you who remember back in the day when Bill Phillips and EAS were on the go and Muscle Media, he put out the Supplement Review Guide back in the day. And basically, it was a review of all the top bodybuilding supplements. And this was like a gold mine of information. This was around before the internet, like the early days of the internet, or even before the internet. So that was a gold mine of information as well. Some of my favorites. There's a slew of what other ones? Anyway, if I started digging through the archives, I could pull up numerous books. But bottom line, if you want to know this stuff, you got to have a good library. That's just hard copy ones. That's not counting like the oodles and oodles of digital courses and downloads and videos and VHS tapes and DVDs and all the other stuff that I have. But you have to have a good library if you really want to master this. I don't think there's such thing as too much. All right. So anyway, hopefully that gives you some food for thought right there. What else have we got there? Let's see. What the hell? For $5 million, would you give up meat for your lifetime? You know what? I would certainly seriously consider it. Absolutely. You know, what kind of question? Anyway, thankfully, I don't have to give up meat, and not to the best of my knowledge, no one's offering me $5 million to do so. So that's not a question that's even appropriate. But kudos to you for asking. DC saying, appreciate all the training info. You're welcome, my friend. All right, what else we got there? Robert saying, I've been doing some of your old warm-ups. It helps a lot. Good stuff. Yeah, so he's replying to some of those videos that I posted. Yeah, if you do another one, if you do a search for Lee Hayward warm-up routine, that I have a full body weight only warm-up ritual that you can do, and no exercise equipment required whatsoever. Like, this is something like you could literally do at home, either as a pre-workout warm-up routine, like you could do it before you go to the gym, or for that matter, you could do it when you're at the gym as well, or something that you could even do on your off days, kind of like as an active recovery rehab type of thing, just to help improve overall mobility, joint flexibility, relieve any aches or pains you may have. Seeing we're on the topic of it, I'll just type it into the chat window so you have a reference to it. Lee Hayward warm-up. If you just search for that, there's probably several different warm-up videos, but this particular one's a total body warm-up. Says total body warm-up that you can do at home. So I'll just share a link to that one as well. Total body warm-up video. There you go. Check that one out. We have Will joining in from Florida. Glad to have you joining, Will. And we have Chris joining in. Welcome, Chris. I'm thinking about cheating too. Cheating on what? Cheating on your diet? Cheating on your significant other? Cheating? I don't know. I don't know where that came from. But how about we just think about it and not do it? Here we go. What are your ideas on using weightlifting to gain weight? All right. First off, I'm going to address the reality of this. Exercise, whether that's cardiovascular or strength training, is not directly going to impact your weight in and of itself. What's going to determine whether you gain weight or lose weight or maintain weight is going to be your nutrition. Exercise can help to improve your muscle, improve your body fat and your body composition, and it can help when it comes to gaining and or losing weight or achieving a body recomposition. But the actual number, whether or not you gain or lose or stay the same, is going to depend on your nutrition. It's calories in versus calories out, and we cannot escape that. If you eat a calorie surplus, meaning you're consuming more calories than you burn off over the long term, right? I mean, of course, some days you're going to eat more, some days you're going to eat less. It's not always going to work out ideal every single day. But if you average a surplus over the long term, you will gain weight. If you average a deficit over the long term, you will lose weight. If you average maintenance over the long term, you will maintain your weight. And that you can't escape that. So even if you have a workout program, but if you're eating a calorie deficit or you're eating a calorie maintenance, you could be lifting weights, but not necessarily gain body weight. You need to be in a surplus if you want to gain weight. Now, as far as the weightlifting side of things, if you're in a surplus and you're eating high nutrient dense food, especially if you're eating to fuel your body, so you're focusing on high quality protein, lots of vegetables and fruits and complex carbohydrates and healthy fats, and you're basically nurturing your body and nourishing it on the cellular level, then the stimulus that you provide through weight training is going to encourage lean muscle growth. So most of the weight that you gain will be lean mass. If you just consume a calorie surplus without weight training, then a lot of that weight will be excess body fat. And that's the type of weight gain that we see with the vast majority of population. That's why we're in an overweight society, not because of weightlifting, but because of excess calories. So we need to clarify that, because simply lifting weights isn't going to change your body weight. Either change it for the better or for the worse, right? It's just, it provides stimulation. I mean, it may help to encourage muscle growth, but it's not necessarily going to cause you to gain or lose weight. The calories, that's the number one trigger right there. Right? So you can't escape that. Like, you can't outtrain a poor diet, as the old saying goes. Daniel's joining in and says, what are your thoughts on anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen? I try to avoid them. And the reason for that is because when it comes to anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen or aspirin or acetaminophen or any of those things, yes, they do block the pain. You know, they block the signals and stuff, and they may have some anti-inflammatory properties to them. But inflammation is there for a reason. Like, you experience inflammation. So, for example, like when you work out, your muscles get inflamed, and that inflammation is part of the whole muscle stimulation, growth, and recovery and growth process. So when you train and you break down the muscle tissue, it gets inflamed. It has to rest, recover, and grow. The inflammation is part of that process. And if you're constantly blunting that with medication, like let's just say you do a workout and you say, oh, I'm feeling a little bit stiff, a little sore, I'm going to pop an anti-inflammatory, I'm going to pop ibuprofen or aspirin or whatever. There's a school of thought that could be hindering some of your potential muscle growth. All right. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to cancel it out entirely, but it may limit your maximum growth. And another thing to consider as well is these are placing excess strain and stress on your body. I mean, your body has to digest and process all these stuff, and it's extra toxins in the system, right? Like, we're not experiencing pain and discomfort and all this stuff because we have an ibuprofen deficiency, right? Like, it's not an essential nutrient or something that your body needs. It's a drug that's a band-aid to mask the pain. That's what it is. So I personally, I'm not saying that I don't use them. I mean, sometimes I have. If, for example, like if I'm going through some really, like if I had a serious injury or I'm recovering from something or whatever, like I remember, like if someone's recovering from a surgery or an operation or some major thing, they might want to have some sort of pain medication to deal with the pain in the short term. But I wouldn't be popping it on a regular basis, like a lot of the TV ads for these medications, you know, like, oh, I take 2 Aleve every day, right? Keeps the pain away. Or, you know, almost like, an aspirin a day keeps the doctor away. Like, no, I wouldn't want to be popping that shit on a daily basis. Like, that's not good for your liver. It's not good for your body. I mean, like, no, like, save it for when you need it, right? And hopefully you don't need it very often. Quite honestly, I cannot remember the last time I took a painkiller like that. It's literally been over a year since I've had any type of aspirin, ibuprofen, or whatever. Like, it's very, very rare that I will consume them. In fact, wait, no, let me correct that. I may have, no, I'm going to take that back. Back when I had COVID in the spring, I think there was a couple days I did take some painkillers or something or another. Like, I think it might have been Tylenol or something like that. Yeah, it was Tylenol. It was Tylenol to help with the fever. That's what I did. Right, I did for a couple days when I had COVID back the spring. I did take Tylenol for a couple days, but before then, I literally can't remember the last time I taken an anti-inflammatory like aspirin or ibuprofen or in that case Tylenol as well, because it's something very rare. Like, the number of times that I take it in a year, I could count on one hand, on the fingers of one hand. It's that rare, and I would recommend for most people to be the same. Right? But of course, everyone's situation is different. I mean, if you're going through some serious health challenges and this is recommended by your doctor to deal with that, then obviously follow your doctor's advice. But you asked me my thoughts on it, so I'm just sharing my thoughts, right? You use your own discretion and follow your doctor's advice. Can you build respectable quads with just leg extensions? Well, you can certainly develop muscle with just the leg extension. I mean, it does isolate the quad. But is it something that I would recommend? Heck no. I would recommend a more well-balanced approach to leg training, because there's so many other aspects of the legs than just the knee extension, the leg extension itself. I mean, we have the squat, we have hip hinges, you have leg curls, and all this aspect of it, inner and outer thigh, hip abductor and adductors. Like there's so many aspects to developing the legs versus just the leg extension. Now, do I do leg extensions? Absolutely. I love them. That's one of my go-to quad exercises for isolating the quads. I mean, I do enjoy it. I do include it in my workouts, but it's a part of a much bigger picture. So I will do step ups and lunges and squats and leg presses and deadlifts, all these kind of exercises, because I want to hit the entire area of the leg. I just don't want to focus on just one. Now, with that being said, is leg extensions alone is better than nothing, right? So again, something's better than nothing. So I mean, hey, if you're not training legs and you're just starting with the leg extension, well, that's progress. That's moving in the right direction. But as you continue to progress, I would recommend adding to your repertoire. As you build up your strength and your work capacity and everything else, you can add to your repertoire of leg exercises for the best overall development. Another leg question here. Are kneeling squats a good exercise? Kneeling squats. I think I know the one you're talking about, if I'm not mistaken. It's one where you actually, I've done this in the power rack. I set the safety pins and the hooks really low, and you're literally kneeling. I usually set out a mat on the floor as well, so to cushion your knees. And you squat down, like you're on your knees, and you squat down so that your butt hits your heels, and then you just almost like thrusting your hips forward. I believe that's the exercise you're referring to, the kneeling squat. I have done it. I actually first learned about that exercise from watching the old West Side Barbell VHS tapes. Louis Simmons and the West Side Barbell Club, they had their powerlifting videos, and that was on their squat video that they put out back in the, oh my God, it was back in the late 90s or somewhere, I think, when they put those VHS tapes out. And that was where I first learned about that exercise. And it was an assistance exercise. It can certainly, I mean, it can help. I mean, I did it, but I don't think it's a must-do exercise by any stretch of the imagination. It's actually surprisingly easy. I found that. I found like you could lift, like you could easily do a kneeling squat with just as much as you can regular barbell squat. And I didn't find it as difficult either, because basically there's not a lot of leg activation. It's mostly hips and glutes, because basically when you're doing the kneeling squat, it's almost like a hip thrust motion where you flex your glutes and drive your hips forward. That's what lifts your body up. So in that sense, it's a good exercise. But I think a better exercise to kind of work the similar muscle groups would be the hip thrust. Now, I know some gyms have proper hip thrust machines, which makes that exercise and that movement pattern a lot more comfortable. I mean, at our gym, the Omega Health and Fitness that I train at, we have two different hip thrust machines. One is kind of simulates the barbell hip thrust, but it uses a machine to do so with a pad that rests on your upper thighs. And then there's another one that kind of simulates the kneeling squat setup as well. And again, it's a hip thrust glute exercise, basically. So that's what this is. It's not necessarily, I mean, the quads are going to come in as secondary and supporting muscles. And of course, your upper back and all that's going to come in as secondary and supporting muscles. But the main movement, the one that you're going to feel the burn, that you're going to really, the primary mover, the main muscle is the hips and glutes. And I think doing a hip thrust would be a better variation than the kneeling squat. But with that being said, if you enjoy it and you like doing it, there's no harm in adding it into your workout. But I certainly don't think it's a must-do exercise. Right? It's an extra one. It's another tool in the toolbox, if you will. It's another one that you can have in your repertoire if you want to add in some variety to your training. Thomas is joining us. He says, "Hey, Lee, hope you're having a good week. Can you remember buying protein supplements when you were younger based on the before and after results that make them companies a lot of money?" All right. Can you remember buying supplements when you were younger based on the before and after results that make them companies a lot? So I guess you mean, do I remember buying supplements and getting excited because of the advertisements and the before and after pictures? Yeah, I can certainly relate to that. I've tried several supplements over the years based on advertisements and, the getting falling for the hype and thinking that, oh, well, it's listed in the magazines, it's listed in the advertisement, then it must be good. And I remember after getting educated on the topic, one of the key things that I'm going to share, and this one strategy will save you literally thousands of dollars on supplements over the course of your lifetime if you just follow it. Don't fall for the advertising hype when it comes to supplements. So, like, if you see a supplement advertised, do not be the guinea pig to go out and try that supplement. Wait for it to stand the test of time. And if it's actually a legitimate supplement, it will stand the test of time. And you're going to hear about it through real world feedback from people who are actually using it and saying, this stuff is legit. You should try it. And I'll give you some examples of supplements that have passed that test of time, if you will. Creatine. Creatine has probably been the most researched supplement in the world. And it has been proven time and time again to have beneficial effects on not just muscle development and strength and energy production, but on mental and cognitive and health benefits and bone density and blah, 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 blah. Like, the list goes on and on, what creatine has been researched and tested on. And each time it comes out, like, numerous benefits, virtually no side effects. Like, if there is any side effects, it might be some stomach irritation or discomfort. And a lot of that can be alleviated if you just avoid that loading phase that a lot of companies recommend and just start with a maintenance phase right from the get-go. But creatine has been tested. It's been around for decades. It's been tested. It's been proven to work. I have no problem using creatine or recommending creatine because it has stood the test of time. Same thing with protein powders, same thing with amino acids, like all these fundamental supplements that have been around and stood the test of time. Yes, go for them. Right? They work, they've been proven, they've been tested, and all this kind of stuff, and the real world results. When you go on and you see this latest, greatest magic muscle dust or some weird funky supplement coming out, and it doesn't last the test of time. And that's your cue right there. Like, there's been so many supplements come and go over the years. They'll hit the market and they might be popular for a few months, maybe even a year or so. And then next thing you know, you don't even hear of them anymore because they don't work. They don't last the test of time. I mean, if something works, people are going to continue using it and it's going to stand the test of time. But these supplements that are hit or miss and here today and gone tomorrow, like, let someone else be the guinea pig. Right? Don't you rush out to be the guinea pig and think that, oh, I'm going to miss out if I don't try this latest, greatest supplement. No, like, just do you, right? Just focus on your nutrition, focus on your training, focus on, the fundamentals. And if a supplement is actually worthwhile, it's going to stand the test of time and you're going to hear about it through the grapevine, through the gym, through everywhere else. And just don't take the first bit of advice you hear. Like, make sure that you're hearing from multiple people and multiple sources that this is legit. Like, in the case of creatine or protein or amino acids or stuff like that, you can go and do your homework and search numerous YouTube channels or numerous fitness influencers or numerous gym bros, numerous studies, and you'll see that this stuff is proven and backed up time and time again. So you can kind of bet, it's a safe bet to buy. But when you're hearing the latest and greatest new stuff, don't rush out to get it. Like, let someone else be the guinea pig. And if it is worthwhile, then you can go and look into investing and trying it for yourself. Right? And don't feel like you're missing out, because a lot of times companies, when it comes to supplements, like, this is a money-making business, and they're almost like literally throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks, because they just want to, like, if they can get a product out there and a bunch of advertising and marketing behind it, and then hopefully people buy it up, then they can cash in and make a fortune by the time everyone realizes that this is crap, this doesn't do anything. And then they're on to the next one and to the next one and so on and so on. Right. And as far as like the before and after pictures, don't fall for that either, because there's they're hiring people to use their before and after pictures. And a lot of times, what's the key word they use? It's a fancy word for saying I was paid to do this. I'm brain farting here now. renuminated or something like that. These people have been renuminated or something. Anyway, basically means like you read the fine print below the before and after pictures. Basically says, hey, we paid these guys to say that our supplement is the latest and greatest, and we paid for the rights to use their before and after pictures. Meanwhile, they probably achieved their before and after transformation before the supplement was even on the market, right? But the company paid to use their pictures, and then they'll say, hey, I lost 40 pounds and got jacked and shredded because I took, Joe Blow's XYZ supplement. Meanwhile, it's all a crock of what. But yeah, don't fall for the supplement hype. I mean, I did when I was younger, but not anymore. I'm very conservative when it comes to supplements, right? And I don't even follow. If I see an advertisement for something, like it's like in one ear out the other, I just like I don't even tune into it. I wait till I hear real world feedback, real world studies, stuff like that. All right, what else we got? We have John joining in and says, I started back to the gym this morning after the frozen shoulder issue, taking it slow and light, like you suggest when coming back after a setback. Thanks for all the great advice. Cool. I remember we were chatting about this last week, I believe it was, and I suggested some of those videos. If I'm not mistaken, it was the same video that I recommended today for the shoulder rehab stuff. And John's been using it and getting some good results from it. So good stuff. Glad to hear that. What else we got there? Oh, I think we already addressed that when I lost my place there just a second. Protein is good, but it's not a drug. Absolutely. No, it is not. It's just you can get solid protein food. You can get protein supplements. Like, in fact, I don't even look at protein supplements or protein powder as a supplement. I just think of it as it's another source of protein food. That's it. Like I can buy milk or cottage cheese or Greek yogurt and I can get dairy protein that way. Or I can buy protein powder and I can get dairy protein that way. Because like, especially if you're looking at whey protein, it's just protein taken from dairy. It's actually a byproduct of the cheese making process, the whey. Now, it's a very high quality, fast absorbing, easy digestible form of protein powder. But there's nothing magical about it. I mean, it's just food. That's all. It's just convenient. See what else we got right now. Lee's joining in saying, I like the sound of the book you have, Ironmind, Stronger Minds. I'm interested in improving the mindset of lifting. Sometimes when I have a heavy deadlift, I'm defeated before I lift the bar. Yeah, that's an interesting book. I'm all stacked up here on my desk here now. This one, it's worth reading. I'm going to be honest. It's not. How can I explain it? It's a compilation of stories, is what this is. Of stories of people who've kind of overcame challenges and adversity when it comes to different scenarios and different situations. So it is motivating. It is inspiring, and I'm sure you'll take away a few nuggets from it. I mean, it's certainly a good read, and I like how they put the mental aspect into fitness and strength training, because most books, they just focus on the tactical how-to, right? They're just focusing on, okay, these are the exercises, this is the set and rep, this is the training split, this is the periodization that you're going to follow, the whatever, blah, blah, blah. They just focusing on how-to. They don't focus on the inner game side of it, where this kind of focuses on the inner game, but it does so from sharing stories of lifters and bodybuilders and athletes, get through it. So it's kind of a storybook in a way, but there is certainly some good lessons and nuggets that you'll take away from it. All right, what else we got there? Go-to snack? Question mark. What's my go-to snack? I do have protein bars are probably one of my quickest, easiest go-to snacks. Like Quest bars. Kirkland has some good protein bars that are high in protein, low in sugar. Those are usually my go-to snacks. Like I'll keep a box of protein bars in my car. I'll keep them like when I go on bike rides, I'll have when I go on bike rides, I have energy bars instead of protein bars. I usually have the Cliff energy bar because I want more carbohydrates when I'm out on a bike ride, and that's, I guess, technically a snack then. to fuel that. But I will adjust my snack, if you will, based on my situation. If I'm active, as in going for a big bike ride, I will want high carbohydrate, more high calorie snacks to fuel my energy demands while I'm active. If I'm having a snack throughout the day where like I'm driving in the car, I'm running errands, I'm feeling a bit hungry, that's, hey, I might just grab a Quest bar, I might have a protein shake, something like that. That's kind of like the bridge the gap, between meals. But I try and have the solid food meals in there as much as possible. But, for those opportunities when I'm away from home and I don't want to go through the whole Tupperware meal prep container thing, if I can grab a couple protein bars and a couple bottles of water, and that can bridge the gap. And it's very quick and very convenient. That's kind of like my go-to for sure. As far as snacks, when it comes to munchy snacks, like, if I want a movie night munchy snack, air pop popcorn is one of my go-tos, right? I love that because it's filling. It gives me the snack sensation I want, but air pop popcorn, super low in calories, very filling, very high in volume. It gives you that munchy snack sensation you want, but a lot less calories than chips and crackers and, those type of things. So I actually made a video covering some of my top snacks for specifically geared towards dieting snacks, if you will. I'll just type that into the chat window, seeing I'm on the roll of typing in a whole bunch of videos in the chat window. If you do a search for Lee Hayward snacks, it'll come up there in the search engine. It says, you need to try these healthy snacks while dieting. Quick, easy. That's the title of the video. If those of you want to type in and search for it yourself, but I'm going to type it into the chat window there, so you can go check that out. Go to snacks. That's all. Type the video in there. What else? Oh, Baby Boomer Fitness. What do you think of the Garden of Life plant proteins, green juices, and meal replacement powders? I have not tried them or used them, so I don't really have any feedback to offer. I'll just, again, this has nothing to do with the Garden of Life brand because I haven't used it, so I can't comment on it. But I'm generally not a huge fan of a lot of plant-based protein powders. I do like greens, and I do supplement with green powders, right? So, but as far as a lot of the plant-based protein powders, especially hemp protein, like I know it still is popular, but it was really popular for a while, and there a lot of the vegan folks are promoting hemp protein. That, I mean, maybe there's some good ones out there. I don't know. Maybe it's progressed, but I know the hemp proteins that I've tried in the past, they were so gritty, and I mean, it tastes like you're just mixing up a scoop of dirt into a shaker cup of water and then drinking it down. Like if I had to give you an analogy of what it felt like or tasted or the sensation, that's what it was. It was like, man, you just got a scoop of dirt out of the garden, put it in a shaker cup and drink it. It had that fibrous, gritty taste to it. Like it wasn't no smooth mixing or anything like that. I hated it. I mean, I thought it was disgusting, right? So I'm not a fan of that. Some other types of protein powders, like pea protein is not bad. I've used some pea proteins and, different types of vegetable protein. Some of those were okay, but hemp, I would not recommend that. I mean, unless they've come up with a better manufacturing process since the days when I used it, which I don't know, maybe they have, maybe they haven't, I don't know. But that stuff was the worst. But some of the plant-based proteins, I mean, they're not bad. I mean, but they do have more of a gritty texture to them, right? Like it doesn't have that smooth mixing texture like a whey protein does, right? You can taste the fiber and the grit in them, and that may be a bit of a turnoff for some people. I know it is for me anyway. I like a smooth mixing protein, and that's why I go with the whey protein. And I have no problem consuming dairy. I have no digestive issues or moral or ethical reasons why I can't consume dairy. So I'm totally cool with consuming dairy. Now, if you have digestive issues or moral or ethical reasons why you're not supposed to consume dairy, then you'll have to look for other sources. And who knows, maybe some of the plant-based ones could be ideal. But personally, I don't go for them. I just stick with the whey protein powders myself. All right. What else we got there? I think that pretty much clues it up. If I'm not mistaken, I think we've covered all of our Q&A. Actually, okay, one more just came through there. I'm just going to address this. Ryan says, do you have a least favorite exercise? I know squat day is coming up and I dread it, but once I'm under the bar, I'm fine. Not really. I can't say an exercise stands out in my mind that I hate. You know, unless it's a movement that causes a lot of pain or discomfort. And I think the big thing we need to look at when it comes to exercises is how you're doing the exercise and um, whether or not you have any pre-existing mobility issues around that movement. Like some people have pre-existing back issues or knee issues or shoulder issues or whatever that make it difficult to do certain exercises. Like, so if, for example, if you have some shoulder pain, you might not be able to do a barbell bench press, but you may be able to do like a dumbbell press or a machine press or some other chest press variation instead. Same when it comes to squats. Like maybe if you have any knee or back or hip issues, you might not be able to do a squat, but you might be able to do another variation instead, like maybe a machine squat or a leg press or something. So for me personally, I don't really have a favorite or a least favorite exercise per se, but my training has changed a lot over the years to the point where I'm lifting within my means, because I can relate to where you're coming from. Like back in the day when I was training, especially when I was training for powerlifting and really trying to push the limits and always striving to lift heavier and heavier, I would dread some of those workouts. You'd have butterflies in your belly with the thought of getting under multiple plates on the barbell for squats, benches, deadlifts, whatever, like, and just right, you'd almost cringe with the thought of how much effort was going to be needed to be exerted and stuff like that. Nowadays, I lift within my means and I have no shame in, hey, if I'm not feeling it today, I'm going to lighten the load, right? It's going to be an easy day, right? If I'm feeling more energetic, then hey, I'm going to push myself, right? So I'll let my energy levels and how my body is feeling in terms of aches, pains, and mobility and all that stuff dictate how heavy I'm going to go. I'm not chasing the logbook anymore. Whereas back in the day, especially when I was competing in powerlifting, I was always trying to add that extra 5 pounds to the bar. That was my thing. I was always wanting to set PRs, want to better than I did before type of thing. I always wanted to try and build it up. And that works for a while. Don't get me wrong. Like that is a great form of progressive overload. And for most people, especially if you're new in your fitness journey, like that is a great benchmark to use. But eventually everyone's going to hit the point where you just can't keep going up week after week after week. Like you can't add 5 pounds to that barbell every single week, right? There's going to hit a time where your strength is going to start to level off, and it'll get to the point where, hey, even adding 5 pounds in a year is going to be a big milestone for some people, right? And you're even going to get to the point where maybe in some cases your strength is declining as well. Like that's where I'm at. Like I can't lift the same weights that I did back when I was at my peak, right? I mean, that's not happening anymore, but I still train within my own limits at this stage of the game. And by doing that, lifting within my means and knowing that I'm not putting myself at risk of injury, it makes the exercises a lot more enjoyable. So I don't really have a least favorite exercise anymore, because I know I'm going to lift within my means and I don't have to dread the exercise, right? Because I'm not going to kill myself. I'm going to do the exercise to work the muscle and to reap the health and fitness benefits of it, but not do so where I'm risking injury. And I think where I start to dread the exercise or hate the exercise is where you're walking that tightrope of, hey, I might make the lift and set a personal best, or I might snap my shit up and get injured, right? And that's where I'm dreading this exercise and the fear and all that comes about. But if you're lifting within your means and you're focusing on being good enough and good enough consistently and having no shame or guilt if I have to lighten the weight, then I really don't dread any exercises anymore. I mean, the workouts are actually enjoyable. I enjoy my workouts. Because I mean, I haven't knock on wood, touch wood. I haven't had any injuries in recent years, and that's because I take this smarter long-term approach, right? I'm in this for the long haul. Like I want to be lifting and keeping active into my 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. I don't want to just put it all on the line for a PR today and risk snapping something up so then I can lay it up with an injury for weeks or months on end, or God forbid, cause some permanent damage where I'm unable to train anymore. I'm thinking of the long haul, not the short-term intensity. The long-term consistency is what I'm focusing on. Says, thanks, Lee. Great stream. Always have a good weekend. You too, my friend. Glad you enjoyed it. All right. Doing a push downs today. First one hurts. Changed to half the weight and did double the reps. Hey, you know what? That's a good strategy. And sometimes you can work around exercises simply by doing that. Very often, if you're getting aches or pains or something doesn't feel right, it's probably because you're lifting too much for right now. It doesn't mean like too much forever. I mean, you may be able to go back to doing your heavy push downs again later on, but maybe for whatever reason, the joints, the tendons, the ligaments, you're not firing on all 8 cylinders for some reason. It's not like today is not the day to push heavy. So today you're going to do a higher volume, more time under tension, and just focusing on working the muscle with lighter weight. And that's basically just what I explained earlier. That's what I do now. And I have no shame in doing that. So as I'm doing my warm-up sets, if it doesn't feel right, like I have any internal doubts about my ability to do heavy weight, I say, you know what? Hey, we're going to go easy today. And if I still want to get a good workout, then I'll just do more sets, more reps, more time under tension, something along those lines. And you can still stimulate the muscle without putting yourself at risk of injury. So good stuff. Good on you for that. Is it okay to do push-ups and pull-ups every day, going through the motions and not to failure? Generally, yes, but I want you to put every day in and take that with a grain of salt, because some days you may feel extra tired, extra sore, and if you are you'll be able to do them most days. Like let's change every day to most days, and you may be able to go through a week or two of literally doing it every day. But if you're doing something every day, eventually it's going to start to catch up with you. And maybe like after 2 or 3 weeks or something, like, oh man, my shoulders are just feeling extra sore, or my elbows or my lats or whatever. Like you get those nagging aches and pains just from that continuous repetition and day after day after day. It's okay to take a day off here and there and let your body rest, recover, and grow. Like don't get hung up on the whole everyday thing and taking it too literally. It's okay to do it most days, more often than not, or at least say like 80% of the time. I'm going to do push-ups and pull-ups 80% of the time, but I'm going to give myself a little bit of leeway, a little bit of flexibility there. So if I do skip a day for whatever reason, maybe you didn't sleep well the night before, you're extra tired, you got no energy, maybe you're feeling tired, or you're sore and achy, or you're traveling, or who knows, right? Family emergency popped up and you never had time to do your push-ups and pull-ups. Like it's okay to skip a day from time to time, pick up and resume where you left off the next day. And I'm a big fan of doing regular, consistent exercise like this, but I don't beat myself up over the whole everyday thing. Like some people are so, right into the, oh my God, if I skip a day, I'm a failure, and beat themselves up over it. And they get caught up in this all or nothing approach. Right? You just want to be good enough and good enough consistently. So it's okay, but be flexible in your approach. It doesn't have to be every day. And that applies with nutrition. That applies with anything. Most days, right? We want to be good enough and good enough consistently. Or another way to say it, we want to be consistently good versus occasionally great. Because a lot of times people get caught up in this whole everyday mindset, like, okay, I'm following my diet every day, or I'm following my cardio routine every day, or I'm following whatever every day. And then if they skip a day or fall off track for some reason, I mean, sometimes it might be out of your control. You haven't, for whatever reason, you fall off the wagon, and then they say, oh, I knew I couldn't do this. And then they say, screw it. And they go back to their old habits again. Right. I'll give you a prime example of where this really applies. Think of someone who's quitting smoking or trying to quit smoking. Like they've probably been smoking cigarettes for years, right? Let's just say they're smoking a pack a day for years or decades or however long it's been, a long time, right? Smoking a pack a day, 20 cigarettes a day for umpteen years. And then all of a sudden they say, that's it, I'm throwing it in, I'm going cold turkey, I'm quitting. And they go a full week without smoking a cigarette. And then in a moment of weakness, they give in and they have a cigarette. And they say, oh, I knew I couldn't do this, right? I failed. I screwed up. I effed up. I ended up giving in and I had a cigarette. I knew I couldn't do this, so screw it. And then they go back to smoking again. Whereas if they had looked at the bigger picture and said, you know what? I just went a full week. Normally I was smoking 20 cigarettes a day, a pack a day, and I went a full week and I only smoked one. So I went from 140 cigarettes down to one. That's massive progress. Let's keep moving forward like that. Pat myself on the back like, whoa, that is a huge accomplishment. I should be proud of myself. Let's keep going. Okay, I had a moment of weakness. I gave in. I smoked a cigarette. But you know what? I can start again tomorrow. Let's start off on a clean slate and keep going again and see how long I can go the next time without smoking a cigarette. And just keep moving forward. Instead of beating yourself up over the failure, celebrate the progress you made. And the same applies with your nutrition or your workouts or whatever. Like some people they get on their whole diet kick and they say, well, no cheat meals or no this, no that, right? I'm going to be on my super strict diet. And then if they fall off the bandwagon for a day, then they say, oh, I knew I couldn't do this. Screw it, right? Let's order Uber Eats and have a big old pig out and binge meal now because, I blew the diet. Well, it's just as well to really blow it and go off the rails. No, if you have a little slip up, forgive, correct, continue, and start again for your next meal or start again for the next day. Like, don't let the little slip ups derail the whole process, right? Because that's one of the biggest mistakes most people make is this all or nothing. Whereas we just want to focus on being consistently good versus occasionally great. And like, it's like a marathon. Like, we're in this for the long haul. We're not trying to sprint to the finish. We just want to be plugging along, chugging along day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. And if you can chug along like that at a manageable pace, that's when the real progress takes place. It's not in who can suffer it out in the short term. It's who can endure over the long term. Like this whole health, fitness, and wellness transformation, it's a marathon. It's a long, slow drag. And if you can endure the long, slow drag, then you'll be a success. If you're only in the short bursts of intensity, like, hey, I'm going to suffer it out on some crazy low carb, ketogenic, intermittent fasting, starvation, cutting diet, and I do it for a month and then quit. Put it this way. If your program has a start or an end date, the results are only temporary, right? You have to be able to endure this day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out for the rest of your life. That's where the real progress takes place. I know that sounds like a long time, but if you can sustain it, for a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, like that's when people are going to be looking at you and saying, like, what the hell are you doing? Like, what are you taking? What's your secret? And the reality is, it is no secret. It's just you were good enough and good enough consistently over the long term, right? Like this is the stuff that we preach and we really help people deal with within the whole Muscle After 40 Blueprint program is dealing with all these things. And it's not so much the tactics. Now, don't get me wrong. We do go into the tactics of training and nutrition and all that stuff. But it's how do you deal with real life situations so that you can still be good enough and good enough consistently. And that's where we spend, I would say, a disproportionate amount of our coaching time is helping people deal with real world situations. How do you deal when you're going through stressful situations at work, when you're going through stressful situations at home and family and peer pressure and all this kind of stuff, all these situations that are trying to derail your progress? How do you be good enough and good enough consistently in all those situations? How do you humanize fitness and nutrition for real world situations? And if you can do that, that's the secret. It's not knowing the perfect macro split or the perfect set and rep pattern or the perfect body part training split or something like that. I mean, what good is knowing the perfect split if you're not going to follow it or you have all these other distractions pulling you away, right? This is where good enough, but good enough consistently beats the perfection approach. All right, guys, I'm going to get ready and clue it up. Thanks again for joining in. I do appreciate the support, and I appreciate you for participating and asking some good questions. Because, of course, if it wasn't for you joining in and answering your asking your questions, there'd be no video chat. All right, so I'll clue it up. And again, just want to give you a final reminder. If you haven't already done so, make sure to check out the Total Fitness Bodybuilding podcast. Again, it's over on YouTube Podcasts. It's also available on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music, as well as most major podcast platforms. And if you are listening to it through any of those platforms, please do give it a review or a rating. And if you do have any feedback or suggestions for future episodes, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to take in any suggestions that you have and take them into consideration for future episodes. All right, I'm going to clue it up. Have yourself a fantastic weekend, and I'll talk to you next week. Take care. Over and out.